Kentucky's non-excuse early voting is a relatively new feature of our elections post-pandemic. 3 days are offered up before the election for no-excuse voting, including a Saturday, and there are 6 additional days for excused voting, which, counting Election Day, is 10 total days to vote in Kentucky elections. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, 4 states, Alabama, Delaware, Mississippi, and New Hampshire, do not offer early in-person voting. The conference also says that the average length of time for early voting is 20 days. So I want to begin the conversation with our 2 senators joining us here. Senator Webb, I'll begin with you. Does Kentucky have the right amount of time to vote, or should it be expanded?
Well, I certainly like it now. I represent an area where there's a lot of tradesmen and women, and having that extra accessibility or that Saturday certainly provides access for the taxpayers and the voters. So it wouldn't offend me to have it extended further. I think you do have to be mindful. I hate to talk about costs when it comes to voting, but I think you have to be mindful of physical impact and demands on your clerks and whatnot.
Senator Thayer?
Well, I certainly am not in favor of expanding it. And I think an argument could be made by a lot of folks who think it's gone too far and that maybe we should drop back to 1 day, perhaps Saturday, like Senator Webb. I live in Georgetown. We've got a lot of Toyota workers, and their shift, the way the shift changes are at the plant, it makes it hard for them to get it in on Tuesday. But I think we need to wait until after this election cycle is over. We'll have 3 straight years of early voting with a non-presidential congressional year, a gubernatorial year, and a presidential year. I think we can look at the data, see how it's working, and make a decision then. There is support for getting rid of early voting altogether. I would suggest perhaps a compromise where we look at just 1 day of Saturday. I'm pretty old-fashioned. I think Election Day should be Election Day, but I do understand with today's working schedule demands that at least 1 extra day could be necessary.
Do you imagine the issue of getting rid of the early voting could come back up again in a future session?
Yes, I think it will. Senator Schickel had a bill this year that a lot of people supported. We didn't have the votes to pass it, but it certainly started the conversation. And another issue tied into that are these regional voting centers, and there's a lot of people who'd like to see us return to precinct voting, especially on Election Day. And I could see where if early voting survives, perhaps it could be done at the regional voting centers only, and then we return on Tuesday, Election Day, to the old-fashioned way of voting at precincts.
Now, Secretary Adams tweeted out on at least the first day of early voting, there was about 3,000 more people who turned out in the first day of early voting in the primaries than last year. But I'll open this question up to really both of you. Is that slight of an increase enough to show that there is more people taking advantage of this, or are you all going to want to see more?
Oh, I think it is. It is for me. Like I said, my people have to travel to work. They don't just have a shift at home. A lot of my folks travel. And it's certainly, accessibility, and I think Kentucky right now is a model, national model with the integrity, security, and the access.